right, guys. Hey, welcome to the Sky's the Limit call. My name is Stephen. I'm excited to be able to have my buddy Calvin Wright with us. Calvin, how many times have you gone Hall of Fame?
This is my third year.
Third year. Dang, man, that's so awesome, dude. So, three-time Hall of Fame producer. For those that haven't had a chance to know you because they haven't heard your story yet, can you kind of, give them the rundown? What you do before Family First Life, how you found it, and what you're doing now.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, Stephen. I appreciate you. It's been a while. I'm glad to see your face.
Yeah, likewise, brother.
So what I did before FFL, I was in the Army for 7 years. I used to no sales experience, used to jump out of airplanes, was like this hard labor type of stuff. Did reconnaissance. And then in 2020, right in the middle of COVID, I was exiting the military and I thought I was going to go be this businessman, work at a corporate, make all this money. I was going to live an easy 9 to 5 is what the military thought I was going to be doing since I was working some crazy hours over there. And that was not the case. I got to corporate America. I was making less than I was making in the Army somehow. Even though it looked more on paper, I think taxes played a big piece of that. And I moved to a place I didn't really desire to be. And I knew Zach from high school since I was 14 years old. And I always knew that, he was gonna be a doctor, or I know his whole family was doctors anyways, but I saw him getting into posting all these numbers on Instagram. And then I saw y'all in the Vegas office, shaving someone's head or whatever. And I was like, this sounds sick. I'm definitely in on this.
I love it.
How do I get in on this? So I hit up Zach and I was like, the company I'm at, I had to sign this pre-moving deal where I have to pay them back $20K if I leave early to leave the company for a moving expense. And so I was like, so I'm going to take 2 weeks of PTO. If I can make or help 20 families in that amount of time, then I'll quit and I won't go back and I'll move. And so that was the goal. And that's what we set out to do. And that's what we accomplished. And then it turned into, the head shaving and then hitting Hall of Fame, and it's kind of escalated.
The head shaving. I love it. So, you've gone Hall of Fame 3 times. So it's not a secret. You know how to actually write business and protect a lot of families. When you had gotten started, a lot of what you were doing was face-to-face, correct? And what kind of leads were you running your first year when you went Hall of Fame?
I was running the internet leads, 1 to 3 month old. A lot of just the $4 leads. I was running strictly that. For the first 12 months I was in the business, it's all I could afford really. And I was just trying to figure it out. And I was having a hard time. I wasn't really having a hard time. I was having a hard time seeing the ROI and buying mail. So I always just was like, this is $4, this is $50. I'm getting paid almost the same. So why not I just keep doing this? Right. And so I just got really good at doing that. And so I did that for almost 18 months. I only did internet leads. I did all CRM, then I did a little bang bang, then I did a little myself gen, and then I just kind of blended it all up and just kind of threw it in a bucket and just see what landed. And then after that, telesales got really popular, right? And so I pushed really hard on that. I was like, I don't want to do it. It's not my deal. I'm just going to keep driving. I was driving an hour and a half one way to San Antonio every day, and then driving an hour and a half back. So I was like 7 a.m. leaving the house, getting home at 10, 5-6 days a week. And I was like, dang, this is getting a little tiring. So let's figure out this telesales situation. So that's kind of the direction that we started to head. And it saw a little dip and then it took off.
How long was that dip for?
It was a 30-45 day dip. It took me a minute. I was not good at it.
Yeah, because that's the other thing that a lot of people think is they go, oh yeah, I did face-to-face in-home sales. I'll just be able to switch. And it's no, it's a different game. It's very similar, but it's a little different, right? Trey's on here and Trey's like, man, I got this objection this past weekend. And I'm like, I know it's part of telesales, face-to-face, it would have been lay down, you know what I mean? But what were some of the things that you had to learn to convert, you took your skill set from face-to-face into telesales? What transferred and what didn't?
So being super assumptive transferred, being kind of bossy, saying, hey, can you go grab this? Can you go do this? Didn't transfer as well as I thought it was going to be.
Right.
So more of a lot of question big, build up type stuff, small wins, hey, can you grab a pen and paper? Not hey, let's go to the couch and sit, let's go to the kitchen table and sit down. We're not going to the couch. Where you're really in control and you're driving, you're right. Leading someone the direction you want to head. This is small wins, big win. So right. A lot of really small wins on the phone created the end big win, because I was can you grab a paper? Can you, and then you get all the information, right? and you're going through it and you're getting ready to get an application. And that's like the pivoting moment of like, hey, we're going from quote to like, we're getting something. So what I found is I always was like, hey, for the application, the insurance company's gonna need some information off your driver's license. Can you go ahead and grab that for me real quick while I get it pulled up? So that way we're not wasting too much time. And that little thing for me, just like, it just turned the notch for me. I don't know why it just did.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yes. And that's a great way to say it, because you can't be too direct on the phone because they just hang up.
They just like, bye.
Right. Compared to like what you're saying is like, hey, can you grab a pen and paper? Hey, grab your driver's license out, have that ready. Grab your meds out, whatever it may be. It's like you said, small wins. I love that. That's actually a really good way to look at it. So now that you're running telesales, what kind of leads are you running primarily?
So I instead of doing all of internet leads, I switched to my whole entire lead source, which was kind of like a dip for me as well. Was I went to like more of like an IUL structure, lead budget, lead source, mixed in with a lot of generic life insurance leads. So not really like term or mortgage protection or final expense. It was just like, I'm looking for life insurance. I don't know what I want. That's what I'm looking for. Because I found that during like if someone was just like looking for mortgage protection or just final expense, it was a lot of just word tracks and phrases that was like catching up on stuff like, hey, I know you're looking for life insurance, but there's 3 different types. Was there a particular one that you're looking for, or was it like a particular goal that you were trying to get? So I can have like a real conversation about, hey, what's the actual goal that we're looking for here, rather than what is the fancy name that we're going to label this to make it for your situation.
So how did you so like, can you break down how do you have that conversation? Let's say I fill out a life insurance lead for my wife and I, right? Like a gold life lead or whatever is in our ILC. That's awesome. Like, how do you have that conversation when you call, the client?
Yeah. So I would be like, hey, Steven, this is Calvin. I was calling you for our insurance appointment today. Is now a good time?
Yeah.
Great. So there's a couple different ways to structure these types of products, but we would like to figure out the goal of what's actually happening here. Were you looking for mortgage protection? Were you looking for final expense coverage or whole life? Were you looking for a retirement-based product?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Do you have a mortgage?
I do.
Okay. And are you married, single, widowed?
I'm married.
Kids?
I do have kids too.
Okay. And do you have insurance at your work?
Yeah, but it's not really good.
Okay. And so was it your primary like focus is like, hey, if I pass away tomorrow, I really don't want the bank to take the house and I want to leave my wife with some money so that way she's not scrambling on the streets? Or was it more like, hey, I need to build some money for retirement?
Probably both.
A combination? Okay.
Yeah,
And so are you contributing to a 401k at work right now?
I am.
Okay. And how much is in there? Like if you die tomorrow, what would your wife get?
80,000.
80,000. And how much do you make a year?
120.
So that would last probably like a year and some change, maybe, if she stretched it.
Right.
Okay. And so does she work full time?
No, she's stayed home mom.
So her primary job is to hold down the household, sounds like. So your income's gone tomorrow and she's trying to figure out how to pay the mortgage and take care of the kids. What do you think that she would do? Would she sell the house, or what do you think her plan of action would be?
Yeah, I don't know. She might have to get another job. She might have to get a job, maybe a second job, or she might have to sell the house and move in with her parents, my in-laws.
So really there's a couple different ways to structure these products, and it really just comes down to health, what the insurance company is looking at. They need to make sure that you're insurable, you're not strapped to a hospital bed full time. But at the end of the day, Stephen, it really comes down to budget for these types of things. So the way I like to work it, rather than me just throwing out random numbers and hopefully it lands in your budget, let's just work the situation backwards and figure out what programs actually fit your budget so we're moving in the right direction. First thing I'm going to go over is the medical piece. What prescription medications do you have, even if you don't take them?
I take a blood pressure med. It's
Okay.
called lisinopril. I take something for gout called allopurinol, and that's about it.
Okay. So relatively pretty healthy. Do you smoke?
I don't smoke.
Felonies, DUIs, probation, parole,
No.
and crazy? Okay. And and doesn't sound like you really know like the 3 different types of insurance. So I'm just going to go over it real quick so we're both on the same page. So there's 3 different types. There is whole life, which is permanent insurance. It's the most expensive form of insurance, but it's the most lenient in terms of health. Typically used for final expenses, which means funeral costs. Then we have term life, which is typically used as a temporary replacement. At the end of the day, it's going to expire for the most part. It's the cheapest form of insurance. You do have to be healthy to get it. A lot of times people use it if you're a little bit younger, you need to cover some income gaps, pay off mortgage, that type of thing, which kind of sounds like what we're looking for. And then there's a blend, which is called an IUL. What that means, it bridges the gap between the two. And it's really knocking down two goals at once, where you're getting that protection you need up front right away. And then down later in life, it's going to provide some retirement protection for you, where you're going to be able to take money from it and use it as an asset. Now, the thing here is health, like I was talking about before. I would love to be able to just go pick the best one out of here and get that one for you, but it really just comes down to health, and you have to be super healthy to get that. So let's figure out what's in your budget. So you said you make about 120,000 a year. Is that you said correct?
Right.
Okay, so people in that price range, just to give you some perspective, and you tell me where we're landing with this, is somewhere in that price range, people typically put between $100 and $350 a month into an insurance policy. People making over like 150 to 200,000, somewhere in there, are usually putting like 500 to 1,000 plus, and people making over 250 are usually like 1,500 or more per month. Based on that, what sounds comfortable to you?
The 100 to 300.
Okay. And then, so what I like to do from here, Stephen, is I basically am like, hey, so it's honor about you, but I'm more of a visual kind of person. So what I like to do is I would like to just get on a quick Zoom. Let's go over it together. Let's make sure the numbers land where you want. And you can it's super transparent process. So that way I can show you what I'm looking at. You can see what I'm looking at. And then we can fill out the application straight from there. So that way the insurance company can actually make a decision based on what your actual situation is. And we're not just randomly submitting stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I would love to see what's available. And then, okay, great. I just texted you the Zoom link. I'm waiting in the waiting room. I'm going to stay on the phone with you until you get in there to make sure that if we have any technical issues, I can help you through that.
Got it. How often do they actually hop on Zoom? Are you doing like a blend of telesales and then transferring them everything on Zoom?
I literally try to hammer everybody like 80% into a Zoom right away.
Wow.
Because I found if I try to like reschedule it, unless they're super serious, I run into some more like no-shows down the road. So that's why I'll ask in the beginning, like, when they pick up the phone, hey, is now a good time? Because I don't want them to be like, no, I'm at the grocery store. And then I try to force them into a Zoom, which is not going to work. So that's why I like to ask that question in the beginning. It sounds a little bit weird, like in the beginning, because you're like, well, am I setting myself up for rejection? But people typically are pretty honest. They're like, no, I'm at work. I can't talk right now. Okay, great. Let's move it.
Right. Yeah. Because, I have a big belief in that too. I'm like, a lot of people that, like you said, make 120,000, make 80,000, make a solid income. Like during the day, they're usually at their job. And it's like, I've heard so many people on the telesales philosophy that were like, they're like, you do the appointment right then and there. I'm like, dude, they can't. Like, it's not possible.
Yeah.
I mean, which is okay with setting an appointment for you to actually meet with them later, especially on a big premium sale like this. Now, when you hop on Zoom, what are you doing with them? Are you running illustrations with them? Like, what are you showing them?
Yeah. So once I figure out in the beginning, like the first 5 minutes of all that stuff we talked about, usually it's a little more streamlined, because I'm looking at the lead and it says, hey, here's my goal, or, here's my agent, like a little bit of information, right? So like based off of the information they give me in the beginning, if they're like, hey, this is what I'm looking for, or this is what we identified the issue that we need to solve is, then that Zoom conversation is all around that. So if it's an IUL, like for example, let's say we're talking about an IU in this particular scenario, I'm gonna be like, hey, the easiest way to do this, I'm gonna do a screen share. I literally just give them the Zoom, I pop open the illustration, and be like, hey, so I'm going to ask you all these questions. And I'm going to show you exactly the proper way to structure this for our goal is, because there's a few different ways to do it, but we need to make sure it's right for you. So if we're doing this, cash value focused insurance policy, the whole goal here is to get as much cash in the policies as possible. So what does that really mean? That means they have the lowest amount of insurance in place required by the IRS to get the most amount of cash in the policy. So I highlight min, death, max cash value. This is the nuts and bolts, right? And then I'm like, so you told me, between 100 and 300 is comfortable for you. Let's just split it in the middle. Let's say 200. I'm going to show you an illustration based off 200. If we need to move the needle left to right a little bit, let's do that in the illustration process. So when we actually apply the carrier, they know that we're serious about this amount. And so I want to get the amount. I want to get them to agree to the price as many times as possible during that illustration, so they can see how far that's going to get them, so that I don't get a price objection. Because usually 90%, as you know, 90% of the time, it's usually around the budget.
Right. What's your average premium doing these IUL, life leads and, IUL leads? That was like a big smile, man. I'm curious to see what the number is now.
I like it a lot. It's usually like 300 a month is the typical like average AP. I don't typically would do something less than 100, just because you're not going to see a ton of cash value, you know, obviously in something like that. So I'm just like, hey, for the $100, it would just make more sense. Let's just do like a you know, a CBO or a term or whatever, just to get you more value. Because it seems like you actually really need the insurance piece rather than the investment piece.
What are the carriers that you usually write with your IUL clients?
So the order I go in and the order I always tell like new agents, especially because everybody puts this thing around, oh, IE is a super complicated process. It's really not complicated at all. There's like 2 ways to do it. So, and Ethos makes it super easy. So I go Ethos, NLG, FNG, or MU. So I always start with Ethos because no matter what, it's either going to give me a 95% of the time instant decision or a declinal, and it will reroute the client. So let's say they get the client from Ethos for whatever weird reason, because I did a bad job at underwriting the product. I transitioned to NLG. It takes a long time for them to go through the underwriting process, and you don't get paid very fast. So you kind of need to have some money saved up because you know you're not going to get paid right away. So that's why I always start with Ethos first, quick underwriting, quick pay, plus bonus pool, obviously, and then NLG. And if for whatever reason they do get the client from NLG, it's very easy to send them the True Stage link right then and there and be like, hey, we're going to also fill out this NLG application. Like I was saying before, it takes, 2 to 3 weeks for these approvals to come through. In the meantime, I'm going to have you fill out this other True Stage link that I sent you, so we can have this ready, locked and loaded for if something were to happen where you don't get approved for this one. So I tee myself up that I always have a backup route rather than I'm only relying on this one solo post that I have to stand on.
Got it. So you're basically saying, hey man, if NLG doesn't take you as well and FNG doesn't take you, at least we have a term ready to go.
Yeah, this is already locked and loaded, but we're going to get this approved. This is good. This is on standby for if this does not get approved. And the cool thing about all of this is that most people do have an IUL and a term because they want the high protection while they're young, and they have the investment piece of the cash value focus piece at the end, and they pair them together like peanut butter and jelly.
Right. Oh, I love the way you said that. That's so awesome. Have you ran any mortgage protection and used IULs in the process of doing it?
In the past, a little bit. I never was like super great at mortgage protection. I wish I could say I was, but I just never like got super good at it. But Zeb, I talked to him quite a bit, and he kills it on like, that's all he runs is mortgage protection. And he pretty much uses Ethos for mortgage protection because he uses it as like the MU IULE, except it's way better.
Absolutely. Because the thing that's cool about, the Ethos IUL that you can use for mortgage protection is you can take the cash value and the the cash value amounts at like 15, 20, 25, or 30 will basically be the same, if not more, than an actual CBO product. And the cost of insurance is cheaper. So they can get more coverage and still pay off their home early if they want to. And if not, they can just leave it in there, like you said, for retirement purposes. So, an IUL, Ethos IUL, and a lot of the other carriers, if you do it properly, if you structure it right, is actually a phenomenal product. It's just that so many times, kind of like you said, Calvin, like a brand new agent, it's, the reason why I was always nervous about teaching IULs and stuff, because I'm like, you're a brand new agent, you need to make money to pay your stuff, your mortgage and all that stuff now. You can't write NLG, FNG and expect to get paid 6 weeks from now. Right. Yeah. But the nice part about Ethos is they created a product that has 95% instant decision, and they'll pay you tomorrow. And for me, like, that's a big win because now the client gets a phenomenal product. You get, a commission for that, and it's a win for everybody. Right. And so they pay pretty well too, which is really, really neat. So do you have any other like things that you touch on? Because like you said, so many people talk about indexing and strategies and crediting strategies and this, that, and the other. Like, how do you make it simple? Because that can be the complex part, right? Participation rates, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I don't even explain all of that stuff, honestly. I pretty much, I dive into the goals because they only really care about what it's used for. And so they see, the two things the clients really see is what I realize is they see how much is this coming on my bank account every month and where does it get me? So that's the only two things I focus on. I don't over explain this product. I don't go into what fund it follows. How does it fund? How does it follow that fund? None of that stuff. It's irrelevant because they're not going to understand it and they'll forget it for 2 weeks from now. So I basically am like, hey, based on X amount of dollars per month, this is how much money you're expected to have or predicted to have on a hypothetical situation by this age. It could be more, it could be a little bit less. 95% of the time, it's always a little bit more because they typically never miss. They've been around for 187 years, so they know how to structure these things to make money. Now, a couple of cool things I want to talk about the Ethos product and how to leverage it into your presentation. So if you're already doing mortgage protection or final expense or whatever you're doing, the coolest thing about Ethos is they get a free will and trust, which is going to save all your clients $500 to $2,500 just for that. So like, as I pull up the illustration or like I always like just doing the application on Zoom. Like, even if it's a whole life, I'm like, let's get on Zoom, just because I want them to see everything in the application. So that way I don't have any objections. But I'm like, hey, do you see this? What it says Ethos perks right here? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, the cool thing about this is that you're gonna get a free will and trust as soon as you get approved for this program. So when you activate your policy today, you're gonna download an app called Ethos. It's a green one, and then you're gonna schedule a call to do your will and trust, and you're gonna save yourself $2,500 for your family, and you're gonna get all your estate planning done.
Right.
And now we knocked out like pretty much a big, like, they take a big weight off their shoulder, and it sells it for it. They're like, wow, I'm getting all this free stuff.
Right. Dude, and the value of that is huge, because like if people own homes and they don't put the house in the home, in the house in the trust, like they're going to end up going through probate. And that probably sucks. I'm going through it right now. Like, it's trash. Like, I would never wish that upon anybody. And if you have a client that doesn't have that, which 99% of the clients don't, that is a major selling piece. You know what I mean? Like, it's talking about financial planning and properly structuring your clients' lives by the time they pass away. Like, that's one of the best ways to do it. So if anybody has any questions in about Calvin's presentation or any IUL stuff, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. We'll hit them as we go soon. But Calvin, you know, one of the things that I want to kind of talk about too, it's like you're working really smart compared to hard, right? Because you're going, hey, my average IUL policy is like $200-300 a month. So like you can sell the same premium with less policies because your annual premium is higher, right? How many appointments do you run in a week right now? And what's your numbers look like in that sense?
That's a good question. So I'm going to give you a clip of before and after, because this was like a big deal for me. And that was something I was a little bit worried about transitioning from in-home to teles. Was before I was running like 30 to 40 appointments in-home a week. And I was selling, you know, probably like 4 to 5, maybe 6 a day. And then I would have a little bit higher chargeback, just because, you know, you're a little bit stronger at objections in the home. So I was a little bit worried about that going from the production side, because I was like, well, I have to submit this many apps, and I have to do this many appointments, and blah, blah. And once I figured out, like, okay, the AP on these are significantly higher from what I was used to. I was kind of in the trenches a little bit, you know, doing $50 a month policies, 30, and now these are like $200-300. Is that, well, I don't need to beg everyone to get the product. Like, I'm going to find the people that really want this product, and they're going to stick like glue, because I'm not talking them into something that I already know they need, but they just aren't like mature enough to keep it in their budget. And these people are like really mature. Like, it's the same as like buying a mortgage protection lead. Like, hey, I bought a house, I know how to do a mortgage process. It's the same thing. Like, they already have a mortgage. So it's like, right, the maturity of the client is super high. The intent's very high. The product's really hard to replace because it knocks out a lot of things for people. And so from a schedule standpoint, I run my schedule from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. Central. That way I can get people on the Eastern and Pacific time on both sides. And that gives me a little bit of time in the morning to knock out a lot of recruiting stuff that I do. And then I fill all the gaps 30 minutes. So every 30 minutes there's an appointment. And then if there is a gap for whatever reason, I backfill it with more recruiting appointments right now. That's like, I'm trying to get a blend. From a producer standpoint, you know, obviously dial during those times. And then, so that would be like 9-10 good appointments a day. If you do 6 presentations, you can usually get about like 75 to 85% of those people to do it right then and there. And then what are people that don't do it? I immediately make them reschedule a second appointment with me if I messed up something and I couldn't close them. And it's like, hey, I would love for you to think about this, but there's really not a ton to go through other than we need to rebook a new appointment, because the insurance company still at the end of the day has to decide if you're going to get approved from this. And there's about a 20% approval rating. I'd throw some low ball number out there, like, you know, create interest. And so I rebook them within 24 to 40 hours. And if their schedule is not willing to work with that, I'm like, hey, like, I can do it at 9 p.m. or I can do it at 7 a.m. Like, which one? I know you're not working. Right. Like, which one are you doing here? And so I do Monday through Friday on that schedule, 10 to 7 or 8, depending on what if I'm like feeling a little froggy and I want to get a little extra out. And then I still run Saturdays and Sundays. So I do Saturday from 9 a.m. to like 12:31. And then I do Sunday 9 to like 12:30 because nothing ever happens during that time, maybe other than church. And anybody that gives me an excuse is like, oh, I can't do it in the week, I'm working. I'm like, great. I have tons of availability on Saturday and Sunday. Which one do you want? It takes about 15 minutes. And so throughout the whole week, I know it's a long-winded answer, but like throughout the whole week, I'm probably getting still somewhere between like 35 to like 50 appointments, somewhere in there. It's going to fluctuate a bit because of 11 no-shows. But with my appointments I'm scheduling, I have like all these reminders going out like, hey, 10 minutes to your appointment, 5 minutes to your appointment. You're going to get a call from this number. So there's a lot of reminders. It's not me just calling.
Right. Do you have a dialer or do you set all the appointments yourself?
I set everything myself now. Before, when I was in the field, I had a dialer for a good chunk. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to go back to doing the phone. It's going to be tough. And then I got back to it and I was like, this is cake. What the heck was I thinking?
Right. That's so funny. That's cool, man. Because the other thing too is like you said, if you can fill out your calendar and you can just, on your run days you're running, like that's the other thing I want to ask you. How much are you doing one call closes versus appointments?
Like so actually I worded that backwards. So like majority of the time, a lot of people are self-scheduling on my schedule. So there's not a whole lot of like me calling a random client to close it. I call those one call closes because I never really talked to them on the phone. They already booked on my schedule and I'm still calling to close them.
Right.
So like that's probably 80% of what I'm doing. A lot of it's self-booked, a good chunk.
Right.
Honestly.
Got it.
There's a lot of texting.
Drip messages to remind them to show up to the appointment and all that.
Yeah.
Heather asked, do you use Ringy or what phone system do you use?
Yeah, I use Ringy. I maxed out my drips on that. So that way I want to get as many text messages out to the client in the first like 4 days as possible. So I do a text right away, a text the next day, and I alternate like a bunch of different times. So it's not like 9 a.m. If they're not replying at 9 a.m., they're probably not going to reply at 9 a.m. on day 3.
Right.
We need to change up like noon, 1, 4, 6, like hitting all these different times. And then I ask a bunch of different questions. So it's not like, hey, it's Calvin. I contact you about the life insurance, book an appointment. It's like, hey, I noticed you didn't put a beneficiary on here. Who's that going to be? And you'll get a bunch of random texts like it's Heather, or it's Bob, it's Bill, and then now I can go in and manually like put the magic in.
Yeah, I want them to ask questions, so it's dialogue. It's not like an automated text message that they feel.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get engagement. So like if someone's getting a reply back and it's like, what time's best for you? And they didn't self-book, they say 4 p.m. I'm like, okay, great. I don't have 4, I have 5. Which one do you want? And now they know that they're talking to a real person.
Right. That's awesome. That's smart, dude. I love that. Cool. What I was going to ask you too is, how do you balance the time of selling at a high clip like you do, right? You're a 3-time Hall of Fame producer. How do you balance that while still being able to build an agency, manage an agency, teach people, coach people? Like, how do you do all that?
That was the hardest part for me. I sucked at recruiting so bad in the beginning, and I had a hard time working through my warm market. So what I've been doing now, and I've been doing a lot of self-improvement on this piece. So I'm working towards being proud of myself on this piece, but
I'm proud of you, bro.
I think a lot of people struggle with that, especially new people. And I struggled really hard with it because I was not good at it, or I just didn't put enough time into it. But what I found is instead of trying to, like, a lot of people will just like do a lot of self-directed messages. And I think that's what works really well. But on top of selling, I needed to find a system to plug into that's already finding people that are maybe interested in it and just putting them in my calendar for like 5-10 minute slots. So I leverage your video that you made a ton, and we put it on this ad that says, they fill out a job ad, they watch the video. The first thing I ask them like, hey, did you watch the video? No. Okay, I'm sending you the video. Call me when you're done, because I want them to be able to actually like I want them to put some skin in the game. I want them to be able to spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes to watch a video before I'm going to go through and how explain the business works for 10 minutes.
Right.
So what I found is anytime I have gaps in my schedule, I'm going through, because I also have a spreadsheet of like people that are maybe interested in the business, and I start like texting and calling them if I don't have a bunch of appointments there. So like balancing my schedule now, to get back to the root of that question, is I need to have at least 9 to 10 like real life insurance appointments a day. And then everything else in between that, I need to focus on building and talking to new agents and getting on Zooms with people and answering questions for people that are already rolling. And that's how I spend my time. And a lot of the actual self-development stuff is happening after I'm done running appointments at nighttime, doing recaps with new agents.
I love that, dude. I love that. You said that you set a lot of second follow-up appointments for the people that you don't close right then and there.
Yeah.
Right. So like, let's say I told you, hey man, I got to think about it. I need, you know, um, I need to, sleep on it or whatever it may be. And you go, cool, not a problem. But before we can even do that, I need to set a follow-up appointment, 2 days from now. Let's say you get me in the calendar. If I show up to that appointment, how many times are you closing that appointment?
I think I've only not closed one of those.
Wow.
That's if they show up to that second appointment, like it's a real deal. Like it's happening. Like I keep it like not like rude, but I'm just like, hey man, like, I'm going to go over the illustration again, but once I'm done going through the illustration, we're going to use this green button right here and we're going to apply for the insurance company, and they're going to take a couple weeks to figure out if you're going to be approved or denied to it.
Right.
I understand that you're not making a payment today, which is totally fine. We're going to set it for your schedule so that way it doesn't mess up any of your bills. But can you go ahead and grab your driver's license for me real quick so I can actually go through the application with you? And I use that same tone. They know I'm serious. I'm not like their friend at that moment. Like, it's already a little bit frustrating that we already did the same thing like 2 days prior. There should have been no reason that I messed that up and didn't close them the first time. So I take it very serious. And they always try to give me like, here's a note to a new agent. If you get someone that's giving you a really hard time on that first appointment, just like stop giving them information right then and there and just be like, hey, look, I have a really, really busy schedule. I really want to help you. Like I really want to talk to client. I really want to help people that are actually, wanting to get help. So is now a good time or not? Because I really just want to schedule and spend like the actual amount of time to get you the proper information to make sure you understand it, than me just rushing through everything and then never thinking about it again.
Right.
So that's huge. Setting the structure right away, saying, hey dude, like I'm serious about this. And then kind of go and be a little bit bubbly and, have fun with it. But yeah,
that's awesome, dude. Because, one of the things are face-to-face, like that's why I'm saying like what translates from face-to-face to virtual. And like, dude, in the face-to-face world, I'm never going back. Right. Like if you don't buy from me today, I'm never coming back. And I don't think I ever have. But like in telesales, sometimes you have to, and so sometimes they're gonna think about it because they can just hang up and not answer your phone call ever again. And I've seen some of our guys where they're like, yeah, I followed up with that person, from 2 weeks ago, and they submitted, they bought today for 2,200 AP or whatever, and I'm like, what? So it's very interesting because you got to know the dynamic of, the world that you're working in, and not saying every appointment you should literally lead into a second appointment, but if there's nothing there, it's okay. Like you can drip on them a second time. Like what's fascinating is Family First Life, like shattered like all these sales myths that I had in the past. Because like, there's so many books that are like, fortunes in the follow-up and the sales made on the 6th or 7th call. And I'm kind of like, not with us. This is the first call. You know what I mean? Like we go there, we sell them right then and there. What are you talking about? And so, but how the world has changed, and now that we're moving toward the telesales route, like that's absolutely true. Like sometimes you're going to have to be able to do that a few times. So love that, man. Well, Calvin, I appreciate you for everything you've done and for sharing this with us, man. And one of the things I'll end with this too. The ILC is making massive changes on their lead quality. And what I mean by that is, I had a chance to, speak with one of the guys that's running the ILC department at Integrity, the Integrity Lead Center. And he was like, hey man, give me your feedback. And I'm like, how truthful do you want me to be? You know what I mean? And he's like, as truthful as you can. I was like, cool. And so like, I dropped a few things on him, and they're like, have you tested this out yet? And I was like, I haven't. And so like, I actually got some of those leads for our new agent. And what's fascinating is the lead quality is through the roof, right? The social media mortgage leads have been great. The IUL leads in there have been great. The Gold Life leads, especially with the lead scoring ability, has been phenomenal. And one of the things that I love about the ILC now, especially since it's ran by Integrity completely, is once a policy is sold and Integrity gets the reports through the carriers, they just take the lead out completely. And I love that. You know what I mean? So you guys will see that there's going to be a big change with what we're doing with the ILC, but it's been very, very good for a lot of brand new agents and a lot of partners. Like you're in the group, Calvin, like Dom and Trey and, Eric Schmidt and a bunch of guys, and Rob. There's a lot of people that they're brand new agents are seeing a lot of success from that because of the new stuff they're doing to improve the quality of the lead. So Calvin, I appreciate you once again, brother. I can't wait to see you soon. And if there's anything I can do to return the favor, please let me know. But I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Stephen. I really appreciate you guys. I hope you guys crush it today.
Absolutely. Have a great one, guys. Close out the year strong. Here's what's crazy. I'll end with this too. My best personal production months always came in October, November, December. I don't know why. Every year, my best months always came in quarter 4. We're in quarter 4 right now. Thanksgiving is coming. Christmas is coming. People go, hey, New Year's Eve is coming. New Year's is coming. People are like, hey, I'm with the family, blah, blah, blah. Right. Which is all the more reason why they need the insurance now, because the death rates are through the roof during the holiday season, because a lot of people go, I finally see my family. I can go in peace. And then they pass. So if you know that, you understand that, you write more insurance and protect them. That's the best gift that they can give their family. So appreciate you guys. Have a great one. And once again, see you at the top.